Hi, I'm Deanie Laliotis. As you may already know, or will soon find out, I'm incredibly passionate about the power of EMDR therapy to transform lives. I've had the privilege of working very closely with the founder Francine Shapiro since 1992, which not only changed my practice, but changed my life. I'm currently one of her senior trainers, as well as the director of training for EMDR Institute, which is the premier training program developed by Dr. Shapiro herself that trains clinicians all over the world. I believe that EMDR has an important place in the therapy world. In this series, we will be looking at EMDR therapy through different lenses and new perspectives, turning some preconceived ideas about EMDR inside out and upside down. In this video, we are going to talk more about the evolution of EMDR through the years. You might be surprised how it has evolved and how people are using it. I'll also share what I believe is the #1 thing that makes EMDR stand out as a therapy, so make sure you watch all the way to the end. From teaching around the world, I've observed that many practitioners don't fully appreciate the full range of EMDR's potential. For some, EMDR is an intervention and can seem almost mechanical, a cookie cutter, a one-size-fits-all protocol. And this could not be further from the truth. EMDR is actually much, much more than a technique. It's a comprehensive psychotherapy approach that is compatible with all theoretical orientations and can be successfully integrated with other therapeutic modalities, anywhere from couples therapy to neurofeedback. Let me share with you how I was first introduced to EMDR over 25 years ago that, through serendipities, a combination of luck and grace, this became my life's work. At that time, I was working at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Baltimore as a social worker, working with Vietnam veterans, World War II and Korea vets, and POWs, all of whom were severely traumatized. Dan, my husband, read the 1989 article by Francine Shapiro on EMD and was inspired by the possibility of how this could be a powerful and effective way to treat our veterans. So we decided to go to New York to take the 2-day training. Now, this was in the early days of EMDR, before the longer training weekends. The training manual at the time was maybe 10 pages long of single words or phrases with bullets. We were blown away by the power of what we saw and experienced. And Francine was passionate about its potential to change lives. From the earliest days, she was talking about memory, how the past becomes present when we get triggered. She talked about the importance of what was happening now, not what was happening then, which was a major paradigm shift in psychotherapy. Never mind the addition of eye movements. As some of you might remember, she took us through a yes-no exercise where she had us close our eyes and listen to the different tones of her voice as she exclaimed, "No, no, 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 no," or "Yes, yes, yes, yes." And we all had to track the emotional and somatic reaction that we were having in the moment, making the point that it's about how memory is encoded that informs our experience in the present, for better and for worse. So we went back to the VA hospital and started to use it immediately, and we were astounded by the treatment results. I was sold when I saw my first veteran who got relief in a couple of sessions from his hypervigilance and his startled response that he had struggled with for more than 25 years. Nothing before had come even close to helping these guys with their symptoms. So EMDR developed rapidly from a simple desensitization technique to a reprocessing method for PTSD, as more and more clinicians all over were getting trained in it. Since it was such a departure from more traditional psychotherapy approaches, it did generate a lot of controversy, which turned out to be a good thing, as it spurred a lot of important research on the treatment of PTSD that we didn't have before. So before we talk about the evolution of EMDR, let me quickly review how EMDR works to make sure we're all on the same page. While we can see changes in the brain on neuroimaging studies before and after treatment that do show a de-arousal effect as a byproduct of the therapy, we still can't definitively isolate the mechanisms of action that explain the clinical effects that we see in EMDR therapy every day. It's theorized that the bilateral stimulation in EMDR produces a redirecting of attention using the orienting response similar to what happens in REM sleep, facilitating memory processing. What we know is that the orienting response is the neurobiological mechanism that orients us towards time and place. EMDR processing helps the brain stay oriented to the present while simultaneously attending to the past experiences that are still disturbing, creating the conditions in the present that allow for the reprocessing of memory to occur. Now, there have been many significant changes over the years, but let's talk about 3 ways that EMDR has and continues to evolve, because it's come a long way from its pioneering beginnings. First, it started out as eye movement desensitization, or EMD. This was a simple desensitization technique. One of the big evolutions was the unexpected effects of the reprocessing. As most of you know, the reprocessing effects were observed as clients who were getting EMD reported accessing spontaneous channels of associations that were connected to the memory that was being targeted, but not expected. So for example, if we were targeting a car accident that was serious and that the person had symptoms from, then it starts going from the car accident to falling off a bike, to hitting their finger, whatever the linkages are, it was accessing spontaneously similar experiences that were encoded by the brain. The other unexpected benefit was the generalization effects that were observed, which meant that you didn't have to process every single disturbing memory separately. Memories with similar components are linked and will frequently process out along with the target memory. So for example, if you're treating an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse who sustained the abuse for many years, you can identify and target representative experiences of the abuse without having to go through each and every single one in order to get symptom relief and complete resolution of that part of the client's history. Francine published a column at the time called Stray Thoughts, where she would post her clinical experiences along with what others were reporting, offering her recommendations. This was an old school version of an ongoing exchange and conversation of clinical experiences with EMDR, comparing notes and learning from one another. So we were excited to discover that, in addition to symptom relief, in addition to these unexpected treatment effects that were very powerful, the client's takeaway of the memory changed too. The meaning of the experience to the client shifted. That experience and similar experiences like it take on more of an adult understanding, altering those common distortions about childhood trauma that adult survivors have. So for example, at the end of a processing, when the adult survivor was initially confused about why they were being abused, as if they caused it, as if there were something wrong with them, What comes out of that experience is, I know it's not my fault, and that's how it feels. And so the adult understanding is that it's about the adult or the perpetrator, not the child. So EMDR offered radical and permanent shifts that addressed experiences that were linked together by common components like person, place, emotional states, body sensations, and types of experiences. Some of these associations were consciously available. Other associations spontaneously arise, as you well know, not infrequently at the surprise of both client and therapist, making it clear that our organism, given the opportunity to move towards health, absolutely will. The next phase of evolution was redefining trauma. It was no longer just the big T traumas, which are the kinds of universal experiences that would have a lasting impact on anyone. But it was any experience that has a lasting negative impact. We used to refer to it as big T versus little t traumas. The big T traumas are the experiences in one's life where we feel threatened due to accidents, injuries, illnesses, natural disasters, assaults, and other extreme situations like combat, being imprisoned, etc. A little t, by contrast, might be dropping the ball in the outfield as a kid, and your team loses the game and everybody's yelling at you. And you walk away, of course, feeling ashamed and humiliated. So what is significant here is the big T experiences can and do happen to anybody. So there's a non-personal nature to them. The little t experiences, however, are personal to us. So actually the little t's are the big T's. You dropped the ball. We don't expect you to be like your brother. Or it's your fault that I'm angry all the time. The conclusions that we arrive at as a result of these experiences is therefore it must be because there's something wrong with me, and that becomes the unwelcomed gift that keeps on giving. I think of a woman who came to me after being assaulted by a homeless man on the New York subway. She came to me because of her intrusive symptomatology as a result of the assault. The flashbacks, the nightmares, the startle response. Those were part of her big T experience, and she felt her life was threatened at the time, and she was having trouble with the symptoms subsequently. In 2 sessions, she was asymptomatic. However, in the 3rd session, what she was reflecting on was how traumatizing it was that her glasses were broken and that she couldn't see. And yes, anyone could have a traumatic stress response to that kind of experience, but what came up for her around it was why she didn't see it coming. What was it that she couldn't see? And that took us into her childhood, where not seeing was adaptive, but now problematic and obsolete. Although often minimized, if not overlooked, I find the interpersonal aspect of EMDR critical to its success. The therapeutic container, if you will, is the relationship between the therapist and the client that creates the necessary conditions that make it possible to go there. Dan Siegel talks about one of the functions of our interpersonal neurobiology as being the co-regulation of experience, so that the client can stay in real time rather than get pulled into the vortex of trauma time, where the client can lose their dual awareness, often getting overwhelmed and in many cases shutting down. So what their system needs is our nervous system and our exquisite attunement to their experience to help them get through it now in a way that they couldn't get through it before. That's where the interpersonal component comes in. Part of the difference between how EMDR is taught in many circles and how I teach EMDR is I present it within the interpersonal framework from the very beginning. Many teachers, including Francine, has spoken to the importance of the relational dimension, but placed more of an emphasis on the client's neurobiology as the primary agent of change, which is true. And I think it was an important emphasis for us as a profession to develop more of an appreciation for the client's inherent neurobiology to heal them, rather than think of ourselves as the primary agent of change. I think what's different now is that more and more therapists are treating complex trauma with EMDR and need to use the therapeutic relationship more actively as part of the process. So, for example, I'm thinking of a client of mine who came to see me specifically because of her reaction to her previous therapist having been gone away from vacation for a long time, and then she was so activated, felt so wounded and abandoned, that they both understood this as a traumatic stress response. And now this client comes to me gratefully with an appreciation about how her history informed her reactivity and how her response to her therapist was part of the ongoing challenge and all the previous therapy experiences she had participated in. So right out of the gate, we are having a conversation about how we are going to travel together and how you and I, as a team, are going to approach this emotional territory. So I'm always teaching from the very beginning how to be with people. It's not just what we do with them, but how to be with them that counts. So this future phase will move into what I call relational EMDR. I will share more with you about this in the next video. Thanks for watching this video. Let me leave you with a thought. I believe we have a unique technology that makes a good psychotherapy extraordinary. It's beyond changing the narrative, although that's important. It's beyond developing a better coping strategy. That's important too. It's beyond meditation and mindfulness practice. And yes, it's important to have those in place. What EMDR does is that it takes us to the end. And when it's over, it's over. The trauma's really in the past, and that memory will never feel the same way again, ever. And it's permanent. And as a practitioner, you are a part of that client's experience as you help make this possible. What an honor. Thank you for joining me in this first of 3 videos of this training series. In the second video, we'll go into more detail about the relational dimension to treating developmental trauma using EMDR therapy with specific case examples. Look for the next email and watch the videos as they come out, because the series will only be available for a limited time. So I would love to hear from you. So if you could please do me a favor and post in the comments section, what is the magic of EMDR for you? We have such an amazing global community, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of it. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video.